My vision was always to bring the best players. Now, I suppose as an owner of a team, you always want to bring the best players, but the chance of bringing the best players is difficult and always challenging. But then I sneaked into Messi's dad's hotel about 4 years ago in Barcelona for a meeting with him. And obviously at that point, we wasn't ready to bring him and he wasn't ready to come. But I turned around to his dad and said, "We want your son. We want him to come to Miami when he's ready, and if that's a possibility." We continued the conversations, and with my partners, Jorge Mas and Jose, and we just worked on it for about 4 years. And then when he was at PSG, we then saw an opportunity that he was either going to go back to Barcelona, but then all of a sudden everything aligned. And then we were still having the conversations, but to bring someone like him to the club, we knew it would change the club, and we knew it would change the league and the sport. But it's beyond that. It's beyond that. What he does on the pitch, what he does off the pitch. For the young kids, to bring someone like him is the dream. And also Jordi Alba and Busquets, Sergio. But to bring Leo, he's changed everything. The academy kids now have got someone else to look up to that has done everything, won everything, and he's teaching them, which is amazing. The other day it was a funny interview from one of the academy kids who's doing really well, and they turned around to him and said, "What's the best bit of advice Leo's given you so far?" And he said, "To walk more." He was like, he told me to walk more in the game. He said, because you see more. So it's already started. So it's already started with the good that he does. It's incredible. I think it was actually more emotional than it should have been, just because for the last 10 years to try and get this team up and running in Miami, there's been so many obstacles, so many challenges, and sometimes it looked like it weren't going to happen. And then obviously everything came together once I found the right partners in Miami. But the moment I was actually in Japan, the morning that I found out that he was coming, his dad had called us that week and said Leo's going to make an announcement. And then obviously 2 days out, they was like, okay, in the next 2 or 3 days, he's going to come out and say something. So we were kind of just waiting. And I was in Japan working, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning. The kids are in bed, Victoria's still sleeping, and my phone is like going mad because I'd forgot to turn it on silent. So Victoria's like telling me to turn it off. So I pick it up and I saw a barrage of like messages, and it was just, he'd come out and done his interview. But we always obviously wanted him to make a decision based on, he wanted to live there with his family, wanted to still win and play football in the way he plays it. But we wanted him to announce it in his way. And he literally was sat in a hotel room with his mate filming and saying that he's coming to Miami. So for us, it was an unbelievable. I was very emotional about it because it's taken a lot of like hard work to get here. With the offer, we'd made the offer, right. But then obviously he'd had offers from Saudi. He'd had offers obviously to go back to Barcelona, and the Barcelona one kind of really worried me because obviously it pulls on the heartstrings for him. He never really got to say a proper goodbye at Barcelona, so that was the one that really worried me. But then, it was then down to him to decide. And I mean, I played against him obviously for PSG, and I played against him for Real Madrid at Barcelona. And obviously he was unbelievable then. But it's not until you physically see him and you sat there and you're watching him and every move that he does, and he never gives the ball away. He's unbelievable for the young kids. He's great with the young kids. And watching Leo in training, when he first joined, and when he arrived in Miami and he was training, I was there for the first 5 weeks when he first arrived. And I was in the training ground 7 a.m. every morning just to watch him. And I'm 48 years old. So to just watch him do what he does, train the way he does, prepare the way, it's just different. I mean, we all grew up in an era of like, you have to run and chase and then you watch him.
That's still okay with Beck. You just have to run.
I made a career on that.
Find a club, yeah.
But he's clever. He's so his brain works in different ways. You know, he sees things that other players just don't see for 5 minutes after that, and it's just amazing to watch. So literally everything. He never gives, like I said, never gives the ball away. His work ethic is still there. You know, he won the World Cup last year, and he still is as hungry as he was when he was a young kid. So. It's amazing.
Your journey to sign Messi was a little bit like mine to get Roy to come to stick to football. It took about 4 years.
He's so humble. He is really humble. You know, it's just the normal things that we all think that's how it should be. You know, this is someone that, you know, especially in Miami, he's not left alone. You know, he's chased everywhere, he's followed everywhere. There's thousands of people every single day at the training ground just to watch him get in his car and leave and drive down the road. But from the moment he landed in Miami, he drives himself to the supermarket, does his shopping, goes home, and people are shocked at that. But that is him. He's humble, he's hardworking, he's got a great family, his wife's amazing, the kids are amazing. He's just a normal guy with an unbelievable talent.
I never thought for 1 minute that we would lose the game, and I never thought for 1 minute we would not go through. But then nothing seemed to actually be going right for us. You know, the balls that we were playing through, you know, I had like 7 or 8 free kicks that were close, but kind of never close enough. So we started to worry at a certain point because just nothing was coming off for us, and it was just, you kind of thought, is it going to be one of those days? But then I remember getting the free kick, and like I said, I'd had 7 or 8 free kicks leading up to that, and I wasn't really striking them that well as I knew that I could. But that moment is the reason why I worked hard throughout my career. You know, it's for moments like that. When you see players like Messi, Ronaldo, Rooney, all of these players over time, the work that they put in, it's one of the reasons why, you know, I look at players like Eric Cantona and I look at the work that he's done over the years. And when I first come into the team at Manchester United, we used to watch Eric stay behind later than any player, practice, you know, every day on everything, and it rubbed off on us. And we knew that it's for moments like that. It's for moments when you practice something so much that at some point it's going to happen when it really needs to happen. So I remember putting the ball down, and Teddy kind of came over and barged me out the way. And me and Teddy were really good friends, being from, you know, London and all. But I remember putting the ball down, and he kind of nudged me out the way, and he said, "I'll take this one." And I looked up and I thought, no. And I turned around to him and I said, "It's too far for you." Which, you know, Teddy was more mature and a lot older than me.
Did he listen to you?
He did, because he kind of he looked up and he obviously thought, yeah, it's too far for me. So I remember putting the ball down, and I remember Teddy positioning himself on the side of the wall. And people underestimate Teddy's involvement in this goal, because he totally obscured the view of the goalkeeper. And his movement just before I hit it as well was another reason why the goalkeeper kind of really got nowhere near it. And I remember stepping back, taking a breath, and all I remember, because obviously we used to have the band, and we still have the band with the England games, but I remember hearing the band, the beat of the drum in the back of my mind, and then everything went quiet, and I remember running up and hitting it, and as soon as I hit it, I knew that it was in. Yeah. You know, there's moments where I'm sure as a golfer, as a tennis player, you hit the perfect shot and you know straight away where it's going. I knew exactly where it was going as soon as I hit it. And I remember it going, bending, and then hitting the back of the net. And I mean, I talk about it, and the goosebumps it was without doubt one of the most emotional moments for me, because it was such a highly charged game with so much energy, with so much kind of banking on us going through. It was just one of those moments where I look back and I think, it was so emotional. And I remember speaking to my mum after, and she said, everyone just burst into tears. Literally, like she said, she was sat in the director's box and everyone around her was just bursting into tears because it meant so much, and you saw the reactions of people, and you hear Martin Tyler's voice, and it all adds to it. And it was, I mean, it was such an amazing moment, and I was exhausted after the game, but it was such an emotional moment, and such a moment where it all could have gone wrong. It could have been a totally different story, but it made it extra special for me personally, being at Manchester United, being at Old Trafford, the atmosphere, knowing what the atmosphere is like in the stadium. It made it extra special.
Just finishing on leadership, and I think there's always tough decisions in leadership. And going into business, you probably sometimes don't consider them a lot, but you had a tough decision in actually sacking one of your best mates in Phil Neville.
Yeah.
How does that feel? How do you approach that? And then how do you come up? Is Gary Neville ringing you going, listen, this is how you do it?
No, I didn't speak to Gary about it at all. Phil has been in management for a long time, and he knows what happens in management. And I think when I first brought in Phil to manage the team in Miami, I knew what he was going to do. I knew he was going to steady the ship. I knew that he was going to bring the work ethic that I'd seen over the years, and he's kind of, everything had to be perfect, with Phil, and he brought everyone together, and he changed that club overnight. What the work that Phil did was incredible, but Phil knew that it's. And he said the same. It's, if I'm not getting the results, I know what's going to happen. And we're close enough to have that conversation. When he first came in, I said, Phil, I don't want this to affect our friendship. He said, I get it. He said, it won't. He said, when the time's right, if it's right, we'll both know. And we had a very sensible conversation, and but I will never underestimate what he did for the club. For those couple of seasons, he was unbelievable. His coaching staff and everything that he did, at the club was incredible. And unfortunately, the results weren't great, and he kind of accepted that.
Just take me back to that though, because I can't imagine how difficult that is, having to kind of put your shirt and tie on in the morning, knowing that you're going in to say to your mate, listen, thanks, but no thanks now.
I think it was one of the most difficult things that I'd had to do. Yeah. Even though me and Phil had spoke about it, when he first came on as Miami coach, I knew that if it came to this moment, it was going to be difficult, no matter what time it happened and when it happened. So it was a really difficult, conversation. But in all honesty, Phil's an ex-player. Is an ex-player that has been in the game for a long time. He's been through his ups and downs, on the pitch, and he just said, I'd called him and said, we're going to meet, and. He said, I know. He said, I know.
I can imagine.
And then, to be honest, we walked in the room and, we hugged. It was quite emotional on my side, just purely because I didn't want to sack a friend. I didn't want to get rid of Phil. But I think at the end of the day, he's
a man about it as well. That's the thing.
Like you would think he would.
Yeah.